Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico for Street Scores, bringing y'all a special Rico report. It's like, nah, I'm just trolling, but I want to do a two-part series of breaking down all of what's going on with training camp, what to expect. The first half, which is the video you're watching now, I'm breaking down everything that's going on schedule-wise, all of the different processes and how testing is going, who's allowed where, how many people there, and then like the schedule, what days are we doing what type of practices, all of the specifics like that, how many players are allowed on a team, how many players are now allowed on a practice squad, and then I'll also let y'all know who has been placed on the commissioner's exempt list as far as the Washington football team goes. As far as the burgundy and gold goes, who's been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list already, who's opted out, who's been placed on the PUP list, who's on the reserve non-football injury list, who's been released, who has been signed recently. I'm going to break them down like Dontrell Inman and Ryan Lewis. I want to break them down a little bit. I'm going to break them down more when we get to the training camp position battles, which is going to be part 2 of this series. And then also I want to talk about who's available around the league that we may want to bring in at certain positions that are still a little iffy. Again, this is the first half of the series, so this video is only breaking down everything I just discussed. The next video will be specific breakdowns for each position group going into training camp, and who I believe will start, who I believe will make the team, all of those type of things. And I'm not just going to do some general overview of each position group. I'm going to mention each name and what they bring to the table and whether or not they'll make the team or whether or not they should start. And before we get to the content that y'all came for, y'all already know we got to huddle up real quick. If y'all want to go buy the best burgundy and gold merch out here doing it, go to the link in the description under Go Get Street Scores merch. If you want to become a monthly paid member for the best sports YouTube channel out here doing it, there's 4 different levels, each with their own exclusive perks, such as a football Discord group and all of that. Make sure you go to the link in the description under Become a Channel Member. Also, make sure you pull up to Ran with Rico every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. That's the show where y'all call in, you voice your opinions, you ask your questions. It's not like the chat on Sundays. You actually call in on the phone and let your voice be heard. And that's every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. Link and phone number in the description. Also, make sure y'all pull up every Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. where me and my boy Shay and whoever else we may invite just talk about everything. Now with the NBA season going on, we talk a lot of NBA, but we talk everything, including gaming, anime, any sports, life, all of that. And then of course, make sure you pull up every Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. for the Street Scores Full Access, where I reply to every comment in the comment section in the live chat. And of course, all of which I place the links in the description of this video. Now, let's get it. Alright, so first of all, we got to break down the NFL training camp dates for this 2020 offseason that's just so strange with COVID-19, coronavirus, all of that. First of all, rookies reported July 21st, quarterbacks and injured players reported July 23rd, and veteran players reported July 28th, and then that's when the COVID-19 testing and virtual meeting started, July 28th through the 31st. July 28th was COVID testing and virtual meetings. July 29th was COVID testing and virtual meetings. July 30th was just virtual meetings. And July 31st was COVID-19 testing and virtual meetings. Then physicals and equipment distribution occurred August 1st and 2nd. And now we are in the acclimation period. Today is August 4th, but the acclimation period goes from August 3rd to August 11th, which includes 1 hour of weight room and 1 hour of on-field conditioning, total strength and conditioning, small groups under 15, duration capped at 2 hours. There are no conditioning tests, only strength and conditioning coaches for strength and conditioning drills. On-field strength and conditioning subject to phase 1 rules. Quarterbacks, receivers, kickers, punters, and long snappers are the only ones permitted to use footballs. In addition to strength and conditioning, walkthroughs permitted up to 1 hour on each of the first 4 days and up to 75 minutes on each of the final 4 days. And August 8th in the middle is an off day. So the first 4 days, August 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, walkthroughs last up to an hour. And then on the 7th, the 8th being an off day, the 9th, 10th, and 11th, walkthroughs are allowed to last up to 75 minutes. And then we move to the gradual ramp up, which is when we finally start actually getting to where things slightly look like a training camp, just a little bit. And that's from August 12th to August 16th. There's a maximum of 3.5 hours of on-field time every day, per day. First practice starts at 90 minutes with a max increase of 15 minutes per day to a daily maximum of 120 minutes. Remainder of daily 3.5 hour on-field time limit is applied to the walkthrough. August 12th through 13th is phase 2 activities. Helmets and approved protective shirts are now permitted. And the walkthroughs go all the way up to August 13th. Now, August 14th through 16th, non-padded practice days. No live contact, all customary practice activities, but helmets, spiders, and shells are permitted. And then August 15th is an off day. So August 14th is the first non-padded practice day, the first non-walkthrough, the first ramp up from a walkthrough. And then they have August 15th off, and then we come right back August 16th, the next day, another non-padded practice day. And then the actual training camp starts technically August 17th and lasts through September 6th. And these are full contact practices. Hopefully we get to this point. And so starting August 17th, we will have full contact practices. The duration starts at 90 minutes with 15-minute daily increases each day. There is no increase or decrease in duration following an off day, of course. And the daily time limits will be dictated by the CBA, which they're still officially working on. And there will be a maximum of 14 padded practices. So there will be a maximum of 14 practices that are actually real training camp, and there will be no preseason. All preseason games are canceled.
What do you mean? How?
And then the first regular season game of the season, the Chiefs versus Texans, is scheduled for Thursday, September 10th, with the rest of the week 1 slate scheduled to play out the following Sunday and Monday, of course. And as far as the burgundy and gold goes, the Washington football team, of course, is practicing at the Washington football team facility in Ashburn, Virginia. The old location is done. The contract is up also. So the Bond Secure Training Center in Richmond, Virginia will probably never be used again by this franchise. So RIP to that. I heard it was a great experience out there, but now it's permanently Ashburn. And it's weird because our first time being back with Ashburn, there's all these weird protocols and stuff, so the fans don't get to actually go and experience it. There will be no fans at any training camp practices. At least that's what we're expecting so far. You never know if somehow a cure for coronavirus comes out, and then I don't know. But as of right now, there will be no fans at any practices. I mean, media members can't even get to them, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But it's really weird that our first official training camp back in Ashburn is in such a weird situation with coronavirus and all these weird protocols. So next offseason, hopefully, we'll be able to get the full Ashburn, Virginia experience with fans being allowed there and everything. And all the different events like Fan Appreciation Day and all of that. None of that will happen this training camp. Right now, the focus is just to keep everybody healthy and get as much practice time in as possible before the season starts. Now, I want to talk about the unique protocols and processes. First of all teams will have 3 COVID protocol coordinators at their facilities to enforce the rules of IDER plans, and face coverings will be required at all times inside buildings. The players wanted daily COVID-19 testing, and the NFL agreed to implement just that for at least the first 2 weeks of training camp, starting August 1st. The NFL will have all personnel tested once a day, and after 2 weeks, if the rate of positive tests is below 5%, testing will move to every other day. Players will need multiple negative tests before they're allowed to be in the building for physicals or team activities. And that's a lesson the NFL has taken from other pro leagues. Take it slow. NFL Chief Medical Officer Dr. Alan Sills says test results are expected within 24 hours. And per King, if a player tests positive, he will fall into one of 2 categories. First category, if he has symptoms of COVID-19, at least 10 days must pass since the first symptoms occurred, and at least 72 hours have passed since symptoms last occurred. He must test negative and have his return approved by a team doctor in consultation with league medical officials. And in the other category, of course, if he is asymptomatic, 10 days must have passed since his positive test, or 5 days have passed since the positive test, plus 2 tests have shown negative results for him to resume playing. And as the NBA did, the NFL hired BioReference Laboratories to perform the entirety of its COVID-19 testing. The company has set up sites at all 32 team facilities to ensure uniform testing protocols league-wide. PCR tests for COVID-19 virus conducted by nasal swab, and antibody tests for COVID-19 antibodies conducted by blood sample. Another interesting thing is that players go home for Zoom meetings. Instead of having all of their meetings on site like we usually would under normal circumstances, Players go home and have Zoom meetings to discuss things at times. Another weird thing is that lockers are a certain distance apart from each other, which makes a lot of sense. Of course, they don't want everybody being bunched together and then one person comes in with COVID-19 and spreads it to everybody. They want to make sure lockers are far apart enough to where even if somebody else has it, they won't spread it to everybody else. And a very interesting thing that's going on is that people have to wear contact tracing wristbands that track their movements and who they come in contact with. Like, who have you been close to, how long, and everything. It flashes red and makes a really loud sound if you are within 6 feet of anybody. This is all to make sure that if somebody tests positive, they are able to isolate and rectify the problem immediately. There's also a lot of interesting facilities, buildings, and tents. The Washington football team established social distancing protocols in its locker room, cold hot tub, showers, training rooms, meeting rooms, and cafeteria. The Burgundy and Gold literally have a cafeteria with 30 tables and only 2 people are allowed per table. There's a locker room with showers and a weight room. And of course, everybody is tested before they enter any of these buildings or tents. They also use rooms in buildings for alternative uses now. Like the auditorium is now used for coaching meetings. And they even knocked down a wall in one room to allow all of the defensive linemen to be in one room and follow safety protocols all at the same time. There's tiers to this too. Tier 1 consists of players, coaches, trainers, physicians, and necessary personnel who must have direct access to the players. Tier 2 will consist of general managers, football operations employees, other assistant coaches, video personnel, security, and other essential personnel who may need to be in close proximity to the players, and other Tier 1 individuals who may need access to restricted areas. Only individuals assigned to Tiers 1 and 2 will be permitted to access the restricted areas. And there will be limits on the number of individuals from each team that can be assigned Tier 1 and Tier 2 access at any given time. So each team in the NFL has to choose wisely who is even in Tier 1 and Tier 2 because there's a limit to it. Because if there isn't a limit, then it just ruins the whole purpose of having the tiers. And then Tier 3 will consist of certain operational personnel, in-house media and broadcast personnel, field managers, transportation providers, and individuals who perform essential facility, stadium, or event services but do not require contact with Tier 1 individuals. Team and other personnel who work exclusively in areas of team facilities that are or will be completed cordoned off from the rest of the facility do not need to be credentialed in one of the 3 access tiers. These people are not allowed to be within 6 feet of any of the tiers 1 and 2 people. So it's really interesting how everything is broken down into different tiers. Tier 1, players, coaches, everybody that actually needs to be in full contact with each other. Tier 2 are the people that's supposed to be around them, that have to be in contact with those guys, but they are not those guys. And then Tier 3 are anybody that needs to be within the proximity, like media members and all kinds of other people who can be around the facility, but must at least be 6 feet or further from guys in Tier 1 and Tier 2, just to break it down simply. Press conferences are, of course, virtual, as many of y'all have seen. Players and coaches are asked questions virtually since people are not allowed to be bunched up in a room together. As we've seen when they've interviewed Randy Jordan, the running backs coach, Ken Zampese, the QB's coach, Ron Rivera, head coach, Jack Del Rio, defensive coordinator, and so on and so on. Media members step up one at a time to ask their series of questions, and the coach in question answers those questions virtually. Also very interesting is that rosters are cut down from 90 players to 80, so 10 players per team had to be cut recently to get it down to 80. It's normally 90 every season before we get to the 53-man roster cuts. So sadly, that's 320 players that were cut, but practice squads have now been increased to 16 players, and 4 of those players can be protected from other teams on a weekly basis. Another weird idea that's going around is that the NFL is trying to protect players on the field, and they're pushing for the use of a mouth shield developed by Oakley that clips to the face mask. Players have been testing the mouth shields, but the NFL for now is not expected to mandate them in 2020, but we'll see what happens. And lastly, the NFL announced that there will be fines handed out for high-risk COVID-19 conduct. The updated list of offenses includes attending a nightclub, bar, house gathering, or sporting event in which the player does not have protective equipment and or is in a situation where there are more than 10 people and social distancing is not possible. Should a player break one of these rules, they could be subjected to a fine of 1 week's salary, or they could be suspended without pay for a maximum of 4 weeks. Pelissero also reported that non-player employees of the team, such as coaches, medical staff, and so on and so forth, could also be given similar punishments. So the NFL is trying to buckle down. We don't have like a Lou Williams situation with the bubble. People don't understand Atlanta culture and how strip clubs relate to it, so I feel like people need to let up off of them a little bit. But at the same time, Lou Williams, you could have just waited till all of this just happened for you to go hit up them wings. I know you have your own wings there. I mean, literally the Lou Williams honey lemon pepper barbecue wings. Take the barbecue off of it. Sound like it's hidden. I haven't tried them yet though, but you could have waited till after the bubble, you know what I'm saying? But on the other side, a lot of people really don't know how Atlanta culture works with strip clubs. And I could talk about that for forever, but it's time to move on. Now I want to talk about some roster things for the remainder of this video. And again, the second half, which will come out in the next day or two, will include the training camp battle breakdowns for each positional group and who will start, who will make the team, and all of that type of stuff. Right now, I just want to break down who's in and who's out. First of all, who's been placed on the commissioner's exempt list? We have one player, wide receiver Cody Latimer. We know the whole situation in Douglas County, Colorado. The commissioner put him on the exempt list and is waiting to see if he's proven innocent or whatever. And then who has been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list? Well, so far we only have Logan Thomas, who has tested positively, along with a lot of other Detroit Lions players. So even though he was a Detroit Lion in the past, I don't know why he was even around Matthew Stafford and those other guys recently. I know they were friends. They used to be on the same team, but you are part of the burgundy and gold team now. So I'm not exactly sure why you found it necessary to be with them. But of course you didn't know they had coronavirus, but still. But Logan Thomas is our only player that has tested positively so far, and he is on the COVID-19 reserve list until he can prove that he no longer has it and no longer carries it. Now, who's opted out so far? We've had defensive end Caleb Brantley and linebacker Josh Harvey Clemens. It's interesting that players that were on the bubble of making the roster may not even made it in the first place decided to opt it out. I know Josh Harvey Clemens said his sons have asthma, so he's taking this very seriously and won't risk it. But this does mightily jeopardize their chances of making any NFL roster next season. But I respect it, man. If you feel like you need to be safe, do you, man? It's hard to give up on your dream. You grew up your whole life wanting to make it to the NFL, and now you have your opportunity, and you're deciding to miss out on that to the benefit of your family. I mean, wife, kids, or whatever. Luckily for the burgundy and gold, we have a lot of young players on our roster, very young. So a lot of them don't have families yet. They don't have wives. They don't have children that they have to worry about getting the virus from them if they were to come in contact with it while playing football, practicing, or in the games or whatever. Even some of our players live together, like Dwayne Haskins, Steven Sims even live together. So they're mostly just around each other. They don't have to worry about spreading it to family members or close friends that really care about it. So that's the advantage of having a really young roster like we have. Now, who's been placed on the PUP list? QB Alex Smith and linebacker Reuben Foster. They were both added to the active PUP list, which is very encouraging, especially Reuben Foster wise. I mean, I hope the best for Alex Smith, and I definitely want him to recover as well as he can. But I don't expect him to win the QB battle over Dwayne Haskins anyway. But Reuben Foster, when healthy, is going to have a huge impact on this team, on this defense. Should be the best linebacker in the NFC East if 100% healthy. But active PUP list is very important to note. There's a difference between active PUP list and reserve PUP list. Active PUP list, players can be moved off the PUP list to the active roster at any time prior to the start of the regular season, even after one practice. A player cannot be placed on the PUP list, however, once he has taken the field for a practice or game. So that's why they took precaution and added them to the PUP list, because you can't add them later. They had to hurry up and do it early. And it's a precautionary measure just in case that they weren't healthy enough to participate in practice. You may want to add somebody else to the roster instead of them just taking up a slot while hurt. But again, the active PUP list allows them to be moved to the active roster at any time prior to the start of the regular season. And then the reserve PUP list, players must sit out the first 6 weeks of the regular season if you're on the reserve one. And at that point, teams have a 5-week window in which to allow the player to begin practicing. From the day the player begins practicing, teams have an additional 21-day window in which to decide whether to activate the player to the 53-man roster. If either of those deadlines pass, the player must remain on the PUP list for the remainder of the season. So if you're on the reserve PUP list, things get complicated, and it's basically like we're not sure if he's even going to play at all this season. but we placed Alex Smith and Reuben Foster on the active PUP list, which means that if some point during this training camp process, this offseason, before the regular season, we can elevate them to the active roster, which I really hope happens in Reuben Foster's case. But when in doubt, be slow and safe with Reuben Foster. Do not rush him back. Now, as far as the reserve and non-football injury list goes, wide receiver Emmanuel Hall is on that list. And wide receiver Kelvin Harmon, who I had high hopes for, tore his ACL, and he will miss this entire season also. Now, who's been released? Running back Josh Ferguson, defensive back Maurice Smith, defensive end Cameron Malvo, tight end Caleb Wilson, and guard Jeremy Vujnovic, who we just picked up just a couple of months ago in free agency. Now, who's been signed? We're going to start with the most notable ones. Wide receiver Dontrell Inman. Dontrell Inman at 6'3", 205 pounds is basically brought in to be the replacement for us losing Kelvin Harmon. We need another big body receiver, a possession receiver that can move the chains on third downs and also be a red zone threat. That's what Kelvin Harmon was supposed to bring. I feel like Kelvin Harmon has a higher ceiling, but Dontrell Inman comes in with a higher floor. Mostly because he has played more games with 65 than any other receiver on this active roster combined, 59, which is wild. So he's finally that veteran presence we've been asking for. Last season, the 7-year veteran played for the Los Angeles Chargers for 4 games and the Indianapolis Colts for 3. He totaled 12 catches for 181 yards and 9 first downs. And again, Dontrell Inman, 6'3", 205 pounds, and he also comes with good speed because even with his size, he runs a 4.47 40-yard dash. But he just struggled to maintain a steady share of reps anywhere he's been since 2016, when he played in all 16 games and caught 58 passes for 810 yards and 4 touchdowns for San Diego. But that was a pretty deep receiving core, so I'm not surprised that happened. But hopefully we can revive his career and get more out of him than any other team has gotten out of him previously, and he will directly compete with AGG to be the starting outside receiver opposite of Terry McLaurin, because we already know Steven Sims has the slot on lock. The Burgundy and Gold also picked up cornerback Ryan Lewis. We acquired him from waivers. The Giants and the Panthers tried to claim him, but we won because we were worse last year. He has 4.37 speed while 6 feet tall. Him and Fabian Moreau, who ran a 4.35 as a starting outside cornerback duo, hypothetically, would probably be the fastest in the league. Ryan Lewis's athleticism is almost elite. If he can stay healthy and hit the ground running, he may surprise a lot of people. His ceiling is very high. He has a lot of upsides, and he comes with minimal risk. So, at the very least, we have a nice depth piece practice squad player, at the very least, but potentially we could end up with a pretty good starter. Again, his athleticism is near elite, and with this pass rush, you never know. The Burgundy and Gold also went on to sign guard Kevin Panfile, linebacker Donald Payne, cornerback Aaron Colvin, and guard Michael Liedke. And lastly, before we get up out of here, I want to just mention some names that are available around the league that we may want to bring in, since we're talking about rosters anyway. There's wide receiver Josh Gordon, and of course, as many of y'all may know, our current offensive coordinator Scott Turner was Josh Gordon's wide receiver coach in Cleveland when Josh Gordon had 1,600 yards. And he's another big body athletic receiver, and it would be nice to bring him into the wide receiver room, because if we can even get 80% of Josh Norman from them Cleveland Browns days, him and Terry McLaurin will be competing to see who will be the number 1 receiver. It will definitely make AGG a better receiver competing against Josh Gordon every day in practice. And then, of course, there's also Antonio Brown as an option, but he'll be suspended the first 8 games, so remember that. And then offensive tackle Cordy Glenn, first of all, we should sign him because he's from Riverdale, you know what I'm saying, Clayco, and he went to Georgia. That's a Georgia Bulldog right there. He has high upside, he's talented, but he missed 23 of the last 48 possible games, including the first 10 games of the 2019 season with concussion problems. But once he returned, Joe Mixon's stats noticeably improved. So he still has a lot of talent, it's just whether or not he can get healthy and stay healthy. So bring him in to compete for the starting left tackle position with Sadiq Charles and Cornelius Lucas. Sadiq Charles, of course, which I'm going to break down in the training camp position battles in the next video, has the most upside and the most talent out of any of the tackles on our roster, but he may not be ready day one. Bringing somebody in like a Cordy Glenn would be nice so he can hold down the position until Sadiq Charles is ready. Especially with this lack of offseason and no preseason and stuff. This is like the worst year for rookies as far as trying to get early playing time and earn starting positions week 1. So Cordy Glenn would be a great option to bring in. Again, he has health problems, but we shouldn't expect him to start that long anyway, because I'm expecting Sadiq Charles to take over the starting left tackle spot at some point early on in this regular season. I just don't really expect him to be ready week 1 to protect Dwayne Haskins' blind side. I'm a little nervous about that. And plus, I prefer Cornelius Lucas as a backup swing tackle. To me, he's like a better version of Ty Nsekhe, so I prefer for him to just be ready to fill in at right tackle or left tackle wherever we need him, instead of him just being a full-time left tackle or right tackle. There's also strong safety Tony Jefferson. Talented, but missed most of 2019 with a knee injury and was released by the Ravens only because he was due more than $11 million. Really just a cap casualty. And other than Landon Collins, strong safety-wise, there's no depth there. I mean, DeShazer Everett is alright, so it would be nice to bring in some good talent to add to this pretty talented DB room. But it is also a very unsure and untrustworthy DB room so far. Landon Collins and Kendall Fuller are pretty much the only sure things. But I'm going to dive deeper into that with the next half of the video. And then, of course, there's also Eric Reed and Eric Berry out there as safety options. And also, DJ Swearinger is a great option because he's good at being a free safety and good at strong safety, whereas Landon Collins is a pure strong safety. And Sean Davis, who's projected to be the starting free safety, or even Trey Apke, who's the backup free safety, who will compete to start. They're both pure free safeties, and we don't want them playing strong safety at all. But DJ Swearinger is a great backup idea because he can play both pretty well. Plus, he wouldn't clash with this current coaching staff because this coaching staff's mentality is the exact mentality that DJ Swearinger had back with the Jay Gruden era, and they just didn't mesh well because Jay Gruden just didn't have the same thirst to be great as a DJ Swearinger or Ron Rivera with the discipline and making sure practices are hard and all that type of stuff. So DJ Swearinger is also an option out there. And like I mentioned, Eric Berry's trying to make a comeback. He was once upon a time one of the best safeties in the league, so we may want to look into that. But that's the end of this Rico report. Again, like I've said several times in this video, I will be coming out with the second half of this training camp breakdown for the Washington football team, or as I like to call them, the Burgundy and Gold. The second half will be the training camp position battle breakdowns. Who will start? Who will make the team? All of those different things. I'm going to break it down. Is there like truly a QB competition? Is there even a chance that Dwayne Haskins won't win the starting job? Which running backs will make the roster? Which tight ends do I expect to step up? How dominant can this defensive line be? How much talent do we truly have in the linebacker room? I mean, all of that. Just going position group by position group. So expect that within the next day or two. And of course, make sure you like this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please subscribe if you haven't. Definitely hit that bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification every time I release a video. And also, shouts out to my supporters. I wouldn't be able to do it without y'all. Appreciate everybody that donates. Appreciate all of my sponsors, especially the Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen in front of you right now. Much appreciated. All of the sponsorship and donation contributions are going right back into the stream. As you can see now, I have some special effects going. Better camera, better audio. There's always ways I can improve the stream and the quality of the videos. And you all's contributions mean a lot for it. I want the show to get better and better. I want us to be able to look back 3 months from now and see noticeable improvements to the show, the videos, the live streams, all of that. So I appreciate all of y'all contributions, and I appreciate all the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.